Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Ahmedabad Management Association, I welcome each one of you for today's enlightening session on good practices at Auroville. Before starting the event, let me just give you a brief introduction of what Auroville is all about. So Auroville is a unique township that is located in Tamil Nadu and has been experimenting with holistic and sustainable practices for more than 5 decades now. With a vision of human unity and sustainability through conscious living has been inspiration for people from all walks of life. Auroville, a spiritual township that was founded by Mira Alfasa, the spiritual collaborator of Sri Aurobindo, who was known as the Mother. It was inaugurated in the year 1968. Today, Auroville is recognized as first and the only internationally ongoing experiment in human unity and transformation of consciousness, endorsed by UNESCO as well. So, it is my very privilege to invite our esteemed President of Ahmedabad Management Association, Dr. Sawan Godiawala sir, to deliver the welcome address and felicitate our esteemed guest. Please give him a big round of applause.
Not for the President. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jayanti Ravi ji, Dr. Nirima ji Oza, Professor Gautam Gosal, Governing Council member at Auroville Foundation, Professor Saraju, Governing Board member at Auroville Foundation, other esteemed speakers from Auroville team, our executive board members, and ladies and gentlemen. So happy to have this, and we were just discussing, Sunil bhai was asking Jayanti Ravi madam ji that how was the experience and how many years over there. So Sunil bhai, I'll give you a context that this program was nowhere just before 5 days. And madam calls that this is what we should be doing. This is where four MOUs to exchange, and absolutely day before yesterday we were set kind of in 2 days. So that 3 years would have been a big time that madam would have made so many changes. And madam, every single person is in awe when they hear the word Auroville. Even if some shop you see that Auroville incense stick, Auroville incense stick, right? They will, and the feeling would be that this is something genuine. The genuine is a synonym to Auroville. That and this lady, when in her remarks, told that the spiritual township, and that's what something that and such a pleasure for Ahmedabad Management Association today that we are actually communicating what needs to be communicated so far as Auroville is concerned, Auroville experiment is concerned, Auroville township is concerned, what is happening at Auroville. Auroville is beyond politics, beyond geographies, 60 nations that people are, nationalities that are staying over there. And it is all, I think, all about harmony, that how you exist together as an experiment working so well for 56 years. And there's a big plan that we want to have this township having lot of more people coming from lot over, and then madam certainly is going to let us have give us a lot of information and about how this can be taken to the next level. And again, as I said, a pleasure for Ahmedabad Management Association to be partnering in this promotion, we call it, or communication, we call it, that we have for Auroville. Madam, just to give you one more assurance, comfort is not the right word, assurance is that at Ahmedabad Management Association 1, of course, we have a center, Tourism Corporation of Gujarat Limited, AMA Center for Tourism and Hospitality Management, under which this happening. But we also have a focused approach to what we can do with culture, heritage, or anything which is of the nature that what Auroville has been doing. And we would be very happy to do any programs and every program that we can do under the auspices of the center or otherwise as an initiative for the culture, heritage, or the spirituality and Auroville kind of. One thing, of course, I will repeat, I was asking madam that is this not replicatable, because mind if we all see that this is very difficult to replicate. The model by itself, the mother would have what vision, what dream, what thought, what purpose, and then, but then the point that I was, it was kind of music to ears when I heard, yes, it is replicatable, and if we can do that, many parts of it can become certainly a huge, I would say, giving back gift to the humanity as a whole. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Very keen to hear the esteemed speakers from Auroville team. Very keen to hear Madam Ravi ji, Madam Oza ji, and professors, and we are also here to do some MOUs that we will exchange today during the session. Thank you. Over to you, Hemani.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words and setting up the tone. I would now again request sir to please felicitate our esteemed guest. Yes, sir.
I like it to save time. But you could have had somebody.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you very much all the speakers who are sitting on the dais. Now I would like to request Radia sir to please felicitate our esteemed speakers from Auroville team, Miss Anuradha Legrand, who is an Aurovillian. Next we have Miss Jaya Joyril, who is also an Aurovillian. Now I would like to request Prashant sir to please felicitate Dr. Sanjeev Ranganathan, who is from SAIIER. Okay. Next we have Professor G. Sitaraman, who is the overall coordinator in OSD. Thank you very much, sir. Now, next, I would like to take this privilege to invite Dr. Jayanti Ravi Ma'am, IAS, Additional Chief Secretary of the Revenue Department, Gujarat, and Secretary of Auroville Foundation, to please provide us with an introductory address, as Ma'am has been an instrumental in supporting this initiative aligned with Auroville Foundation. Please give her a big round of applause.
Thank you. Namaste. Greetings to all of you today from Auroville. I'm wearing the Auroville hat. At the outset, I want to read out something known as the Auroville Charter. So, to give you all, many of you, how many of you have visited Auroville in this audience? This is a Katak moment to be taken, a picture to be taken. So many of you don't need to know, or you probably know about it, but just for the benefit of everybody, this is also known as the City of Dawn. You'll have a lot more in detail when Anu and Jaya make the presentation. We have a very lovely team today which has come all the way from Auroville. And I, at the outset, want to specially thank the AMA president Savan Godiawala and his entire team for making this possible. All our esteemed members of the governing board, Dr. Nirima Ben Oza, Professor Gautam Goshalji and Professor Sarrajuji. My own colleague Swaroop, who is the Secretary Land Revenue Reforms in Government of Gujarat, who has been responsible in curating, putting all this together. Of course, our OSD, Professor G. Sita Ramanji, who is literally, holding the fort there, taking care of everything, and all the people who've come are sisters and brothers from Auroville, and all the sisters and brothers from Ahmedabad as well. So the city, when it was formed way back in 1968, just to give a bit of a recap, all of you have heard of the name of Sri Aurobindo. For many of you who've literally spent your whole life in this, what I'm saying may seem like a complete unnecessary thing, but I'll take it's better to overstate it rather than understate it. So he went back to what is called the secret of the Vedas, and he felt that somewhere along the medieval ages, there came to be an understanding in the Indian cultural system and so on, the lives, that if you really want to go on a journey within of consciousness, if you want to do things with consciousness in a very sensitive way, conscious way, without letting the ego, mind, and all of that come, somewhere it wrongly came to be believed that you cannot excel on the external. You can't have fame, name, money, success, all the things. And that is why a lot of people believe India came to be colonized, because there were a set of people who felt this journey within requires you to go to the cave. And there was another set of people who believed that you have to be in this journey of excelling on the external. But if you go back to what the Vedas said, and what the gist of it is also in something called the Ishavasya Upanishad, which you've all heard about, where they talk of two things, Vidya and Avidya. Vidya is the journey within, and Avidya is also excellence, the journey outside. And it said the two have to be synthesized to really have a complete, proper, sunlit path and success. And that was, in a nutshell, the secret of the Vedas. And that is what Sri Aurobindo again gave back, with all respect to many Western scholars, many other scholars of Indian origin too back then. He was perhaps the first one, along with Swami Dayananda Saraswati of Arya Samaj, who first again gave this true interpretation of the Vedas. Otherwise, the Westerners, somewhere, the scholars back then, thought that this whole the Vedas, the knowledge that came to us, was some kind of a barbaric. It was something handed down about cows and, about power and rain and lightning, without realizing that all of these were symbols. They were almost algebraic symbols of how do you go in the journey within and excel outside. So when he spoke of something called Gnostic communities in his beautiful work called Life Divine, we have Bhalindu Bhai and others, several here, who have spent their whole life on this. The Life Divine actually showed how you can indeed have a divine life on earth. And he also said how we could accelerate the process of evolution. So if initially there was a situation where might was right, it was the lions and others were very strong, but slowly there came human beings with a mind which was far more powerful. But Sri Aurobindo said that's not the end. The mind too is always accompanied with its twin brother, ego, which tends to divide and differentiate and is always fraught with disharmony. So how do we transcend it to really be able to have a state of the super mind or something beyond the mind, but not letting this go? You need all these faculties. You need a beautiful body, beautiful mind to analyze. You need all of this, but you also need something more powerful to be able to holistically hold all this together. And that's the evolution that he wanted to accelerate, which would in due course eventually happen. And that is why he spoke of Gnostic communities as against agnostic communities or neutral. And Mother, his spiritual collaborator in 1968, about 56 years ago, founded this city called Auroville. And many people believe it is in Pondicherry. Yes, it is close to Pondicherry, but it is actually in Tamil Nadu. It's in a district called Virupuram in Tamil Nadu, but very close to Pondicherry. So this was founded in February, 28th of February 1968. Professor Gautam Da will also, when we have the Q&A and others, they will also share a lot of history details about Auroville and what was the purpose. So this whole effort, I will read out this charter which was read at that time by the mother. She did not physically come to Auroville. She was only about 90 years young when she founded this, right? And she went into a lot of detail. So she very strongly not only believed but professed and practiced that age is just a number. She believed, and she used to play tennis all well into her 80s. So that's the kind of reverence, respect that she gave to her body, to all faculties. She was somebody who played beautiful organ music, who painted. She knew and read about anything and everything. So that's the kind of, multi-potentialite in every dimension that she excelled. And this is what the Indian knowledge system, the secret of the Vedas, is about, really excelling. Sarvangi Utkrishtata, as we say, all-round excellence. So the charter says, Auroville belongs to nobody in particular. Auroville belongs to humanity as a whole. But to live in Auroville, one must be a willing servitor of divine consciousness, which means we place our ego, personal preferences at the lotus feet of the divine. Number 2, Auroville will be the place of an unending education. And that is why we today happen to be under the Ministry of Education in Government of India, not Ministry of Culture. A lot of people ask us. A place of unending education, of constant progress, and a youth that never ages. Number 3, Auroville wants to be the bridge between the past and the future, taking advantage of all discoveries from without and from within. Auroville will boldly spring towards future realization. So the answer to Savanbhai's question is Auroville was not meant to be an isolated entity. Yes, it was meant to be a beacon, and it is meant to be a beacon to a lighthouse for the whole world to see what is the real solution, because we've excelled. We have plenty, but we also have plenty of conflicts. So why is it that with all this progress that we've made in science, technology, agriculture, all of it, why is it that humanity is still at war with each other? So there is something different that we need to do. And for that, we cannot hold on to our egos, our preferences. We have to consecrate all of it ourselves for something larger, which we may not understand, but with faith, sincerity, and surrender, we have to offer ourselves, and that's the gist. And finally, Auroville will be a site of material and spiritual researches for a living embodiment of an actual human unity. So all this is work in progress at Auroville. So the idea behind this is, if I may use the word, it is an effort in something that we may like to call Auroville calling, Auroville beckons, Auroville invites. So the plan is to reach out to all the states, union territories, which we've already started. We've had such programs in Tamil Nadu, in Pondicherry, and now we're going out to other parts of India to reach out. And the governing board, chaired by our Honorable Chairman, Shri R.N. Ravi. We also have our own officer, a former colleague from Gujarat, Shri Kailash Nathan Sir. He's the Lieutenant Governor in Pondicherry and also a member of the governing board. So the governing board has very taken some very beautiful decisions in the last few GV meetings. One of them being we'll have Auroville International Information Centers in different parts of India and the world. So this interaction today could lead to the founding of such centers, even perhaps in Anand, Vallabh Vidyanagar, Baroda. It could happen at Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar. We have so many centers, Surat as well, because the whole team is going to Auro University. There's a possibility, but not just in Gujarat, in every state. Orissa again has a very large network of study circles, isn't it? Patha chakras, as they call them. So it could be in so many parts of India, Bengal, all over. So we have Gautamda again from Shanti Niketan. Professor Sarraju ji has done a lot of work in Andhra Pradesh and erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. Of course, he's been from Andhra University, Central University, Andhra Pradesh. So these are all scholars. Niriba Ben and her husband at a young age decided to shift and relocate in Pondicherry to devote their whole lives to the mother and Sri Aurobindo. So in short, this is a little background. And I think the evening will give you an exposure. We have, for example, Sanjeev Ranganathan and Pedro from Auroville. Sanjeev has probably designed a few billion chips, am I right? A PhD, 1 billion chips from PhD from Colombia. So these are the kind of people, a sample of the people we have in Auroville. Pedro again, a PhD in sports from Portugal originally. They're working on something very beautiful. So we can have sports enthusiasts, teachers from all over the country come to Auroville for short courses, long courses. Of course, there will be a certain fee for it, but which is fine. I mean, because anything that is of quality will have some cost to it. But by doing that, we can really make sure that this excellence, Mother's idea was that excellence within, without, everywhere should not be, should be sort of germinated there in Auroville, but then spread out into every corner. This light should go to every corner of the world, every part, every person should be touched with this on this note. I'm extremely grateful that all of you have come here to attend this at a short notice. Later in the day, we will also be signing some MOUs with educational institutions. We're very grateful that the Vice Chancellors or their representatives have also come here today to be a part of this. So thank you very much, and we're looking forward to all of you collaborating, because this is, as we said, it is not for a certain select. It cuts across every possible boundary that human beings have managed to create. It's not on the basis of religion, color, caste, nationality. It's for each one of us. So if there is some way at the end of this, if those of you who are interested choose to visit Auroville, choose to collaborate with it in some way, or become ambassadors to come and see, explore ideas, work with people in Auroville, with other cities in India, other countries of the world, I think that's what we're trying to do. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing such insightful words. And the Charter has surely inspired us and reminded us that the vision of unity and progress is what we are working for. To give us the deeper understanding of what Auroville, its mission, its community, we have two Aurovillians with us, Miss Anuradha Legrand and Miss Jaya Joyril. So please join me in welcoming them as they would take us through the essence of what Auroville is all about. Please give them a big round of applause.
Thank you very much for this invitation. We are very, very honored. Yeah. Thank you very much to see all of you here, and to the fact that you have.
Hello.
Just keep it a little closer.
Okay, one more try. So, first of all, thank you very much to the organizers, to Madam Jayanti Ravi, our secretary, for this invitation that brings us all here and brings us the opportunity to share Auroville with you. So with me today is Jaya. She's a member of the Auroville Town Development Council. I am at present a member of the working committee. And we'll try our best to show you some aspects, overall introduction to Auroville. And we will be ready to take questions afterwards if there is time. Can we just go ahead? Oh, yeah. So how does this go on?
You want to sit here?
How does this move on? Just move?
Who is moving this?
Yeah.
You said so it moved from some cloud.
Okay. All right. So we tell the cloud next. Yeah. I think Dominique is in the cloud. All right. So as you see on the main screen, we have three icons there. There's a G20, we have the Auroville symbol in the middle, and we have Sri Aurobindo's 150th anniversary symbol there. And basically, the core message of Auroville is human unity, after all. So Auroville wants to be a universal town where men and women of all countries are able to live in peace and progressive harmony above all creeds, all politics, and all nationalities. The purpose of Auroville is to realize human unity. Next. I think we will just do it manually, yeah. So some of the things will be repeated because Jayanti ma'am has already said that. So that was the very first message with which Auroville was started, which was greetings from Auroville to all men of goodwill. All are invited to Auroville who thirst for progress and aspire to a higher and truer life. So that was the intention of the city, which was put in place on the day of its birth. So as you see, in the inauguration of Auroville, there was just one large amphitheater in earth. Now it is completed. And on that very first day, we had people from all over the world already, and all over India, 5,000 people, dignitaries, diplomats, people from different embassies, the UNESCO, they were all there. And it was also recognized by the government of India already. And it opened with two things. One was the charter, which was just read out. And the other thing was a city plan. So a city was being born, a brand new city was being born with this charter. So who initiated all this? As you've heard, it was Sri Aurobindo, of course, and there was a mother. So Sri Aurobindo had this evolutionary vision for humanity, which sort of necessitated the birth of the city. The way they saw it, they called it the model town. And it was created for a change of consciousness. And the realization, the actual realization and the inauguration of the city was left to the mother, and she started it in 1968. I would just like to bring one interesting point about Sri Aurobindo. He lived in Gujarat for 13 years. When he came back from England, he landed here in 1893, I think. Yeah, which is not known, yeah. So, and he was here for 13 years. So there is this other deeper contact which is always there. So next. So actually before the city was inaugurated, the mother invited an architect, and he was a very well-known architect then, Mr. Roger Anger, from Paris, and she invited him, gave him a brief, that kind of drawing that there has to be 4 zones, there will be a center, and she gave him all kinds of pointers, and based on that, she asked him to come up with a city plan. And over 3 years, he came up with 3-4 models, and finally she approved of something which was called the Galaxy Plan. Go next. Yeah. Next, yeah. So the Galaxy Plan looks like a galaxy. It's like a spiraling nebula. And this was their intention, both Mother and Sri Aurobindo. They spoke of it in 1931. And they said that this change of consciousness has to begin with a model town, the creation of a model town, and end with a perfect world. So that would be the test run. This would be the first trial ground. So that is it. So the mother initiates it with the charter and the city. Next. Next, yeah. So the city to be. The city to be will host eventually 50,000 people. It's like the seed of an experiment which needs that minimum critical mass. So that's the 50,000 people of all kinds of people, of all strata, all nationalities. So that experiment can be worked out at many, many levels. So the city will have 4 zones. It'll have the industrial, the cultural, the residential, and the international zone. And all these zones are held together in a circle with something. No, I think it's easier, maybe.
However you're comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Okay. Whatever. Okay. So there we have, so that's the circular spiraling city, the galaxy, held together by the crown, and it has a center. And this center is a very important, it's the soul of Auroville. I mean, normally the city centers anywhere in the world, if you think about it, is an economic center, entertainment, all that. But this is the soul of Auroville, where you go to replenish that inner wealth, which has to then be given out to the rest of the world, to the rest of how the city grows. And then the whole city is surrounded. One day it will come when we get all the land, the green zone. And above all, the key feature of Auroville as a city is that it'll be a very green and sustainable town. And that is what we endeavor to move towards. Next. So, as I've already said, that's the Matri Mandir, the soul of Auroville. The mother called it the central force and the cohesive force of Auroville. So the main building is there, the inner chamber is there. We are now building the 12 gardens, and it will be surrounded by an isolating zone, a lake, which is now under construction. Yeah, so the entire area is going to be called the peace area. So there's the Matri Mandir, there's the 12 gardens, and this will be surrounded by the lake. So it'll be like a little island in the middle of the city. So this is one more very unique thing, which as you can see, the ideal is to have an island surrounded by water, which will be used for the whole city's water supply. When she introduced the city in '65, she said, well, you know, that's a place which doesn't have a river. And there is a shortage of drinking water all over the world. So we'll have to think about it. How will it be brought up? So of course, now that work has begun. It'll be a hybrid system. There'll be rainwater harvesting. There will be water which hopefully we can bring up. And right now, as the crown gets built, we are starting to also harvest the water which will come from the crown to bring it towards the lake. Next. So before I move further into the city, let me just tell you about the organization, what holds Auroville in place right now. So the mother started it in '68. After she passed away, there was a series of difficulties that Auroville went through. And finally, the government of India, realized the importance of Auroville, and there was this Foundation Act, which was promulgated in 1988. And it started functioning with a governing board in 1993. And it has three main bodies. It has the governing board appointed by the central government. It has an international advisory council, also appointed by them. And it has the body of residents, called the Residents' Assembly. Now, the governing board is somehow overall responsible by the Act for its proper management, and that it develops according to the aims of Auroville and it doesn't become something else. And it develops according to its master plan. So, and then there are the working groups and services that work all together. So there's the working committee, there's the town development, there's the funds and assets, and many other subgroups which are there. Next. Education, of course. All right, so that's back to the center. We have the city plan, the spiraling galaxy, the center, as you can see, and the surrounding green belt. Let's go next. Well, this is a little technical, but just to make it a little more concrete for all of you, the center area holds the Matri Mandir, holds the amphitheater where Auroville was inaugurated. It holds the banyan tree, which is the geographical center of Auroville. This is very interesting because when the mother was inaugurating Auroville, she was asked, where will we have the center? So she looked at the map, and then she put a finger on that map. Nobody knew, and she said, there. And then the architect drove up there, and it was completely open, completely barren, but there was a lone young banyan tree. So that is the banyan tree, which is our geographical center. When we want to measure the distance to the crown or anything, that's our guiding line for that. So, and then the lake. So the four residential zones of the city, and the main elements are the city center then, the crown, the lines of force, and the parks and the green. Lines of force are collective housing buildings, which are very innovative, which will manage the density, given that 5 square kilometer space we have for the city area, and keep it very open and green, so that along with the rest of the town. Next. So, of course, we have town planning, as you can see, takes a big chunk of interest and initiative. So we have the L'avenir d'Auroville, the mother called that the Town Development Council. And right now, Jayanti ma'am has initiated this collaboration with the CPWD so that they can assist us. We are still a very small town, and we have very limited capacities, technical and manpower. So with this help, we are able to now move forward and just to lay the basic infrastructures which have been delayed for very long. So of course, town planning, all of those things which you see on the left side, on the right side as where you are taken care of by that office. Next. So one of the things which we are doing, and for which we have to give kudos to Jayanti Ravi ma'am, is the crown. It is something we have been trying to build for the last 3 decades. This is the central road which holds the whole city together, and what is more important is it is the key element which moves Auroville towards becoming a pollution-free, largely pedestrian town. Once we have that, the rest of the plan comes into play and comes in place. And once we have it, we can then follow the planning and the development accordingly to make it so. It will not happen overnight. It'll take maybe a little time, but that is the aim, to realize that. So as you can see, then walking, cycling, public transport, public space, all that becomes much more flourishing. Next. So, of the zones, as you see, we started with huts. Then we started with experimental buildings, which were done by the architect Roger Anger. And then, as you know, the needs have grown from individual housing and individual communities or whatever. We are moving towards a pattern of collective co-housing. So this is something which has started and will slowly develop as we move towards that. So then all facilities, many things will work on a collective responsibility, let's say, that we go through. Next. All right. Here I would like Jaya to come in because she is very much part of the international zone. Come. Yeah. Why don't you take over the next 3 slides?
Yes, I have worked with the international zone since the middle of the 90s. And I work with, apart from being in the ATDC member, I have been initiating and working with the project of the Unity Pavilion, which is one key element now in the international zone. The international zone was first started in '72, and then it was known as the Zone of Union. This, what you see in the picture, is the auditorium of the Bharat Nivas, which was the first pavilion to come in place, the Pavilion of India. In, I think, around '76, the work had been going on with UNESCO that the countries of the world who are members of UNESCO would build pavilions. Then we went through different phases, it didn't happen, and we are now hoping that actually, because we need the government to back this, it's like with the connection with UNESCO, that can only come, could come only because of the connection with the government of India, bringing it forward. And we want that now we can move the international zone. It is very important. It's interesting, you will speak about the cultural zone after, but actually, when they wanted to initiate the construction of the city, they wanted to start, so this must have had Mother's blessing. Rocher wanted to start from the international zone and the cultural zone, that they were hanging together. They were actually like the wings, you can say, that could bring this city to fly. Normally, now how to say it, with the aim that Auroville has to be a cradle of the Superman, a city for a new consciousness, we need something which lifts us up and helps us, and that is culture and that is sports. And we have seen this, I will hurry up, yeah. We have seen this in the ashram, how Mother and Sri Aurobindo put such an emphasis on culture, on art, poetry, etc., and sports. So these 2 zones are holding in that. The international zone, can we see the next one? This is the Bharat Nivas auditorium from the outside, the Sri Aurobindo auditorium. This is it must be our biggest building in Auroville so far, no? Yes. And we have all cultural events. And here we have Savitri Bhavan, that I'm sure many of you know about. We have the Hall of Peace with the peace table in the Unity Pavilion, and the Tibetan Pavilion, or actually Pavilion of Tibetan Culture. These are the main buildings presently. No, Tamil Heritage building is also there. And we have some European that are coming up to a certain extent. The peace table, this is you can see in that there is, we go back. There's a table in the center where these people are sitting. This is the peace table of Asia. It is George Nakashima. He was an American national of Japanese origin. And he worked with Mother Sri Aurobindo when they built Golconda. He was supervising that building. He was an architect. He was interned when he came back to America because of Japanese origin in Pearl Harbor and the Second World War. So he became a woodworker. And he was not anymore doing architecture. He's very, very famous in US and Japan, and actually partly in India also. And he received these big logs of black walnut, and yes, I shouldn't go into it. Anyway, he had a vision to create peace tables, to place one on each continent of the world. And the one for Asia, he said, I don't know what will happen around these tables. That has not been given. It has been given to me to make it. But I do know they have to be placed in a special place. And the one for Asia was placed in Auroville. So it's a great honor for us to have it there, and it's a wonderful atmosphere to sit around it. So it's at the heart of the international zone. Yes. You finished the last one?
That was it. Good. All right. Yeah, so from the international zone, we're moving to the cultural zone, which will have education, culture, research, all that is part of it. So the education in Auroville, as per the charter, will not be limited to the schoolroom, will not begin and end with going to college. It's a permanent self-education through the consciousness. So this is what the schools, we have schools which give what we call free progress systems, which is developed in the ashram. Also conventional exams. Then there are the bioregion schools, all of that. But there is this underground, that's not underground, beneath it all, that we have to reach somewhere. So this will progressively come, which I cannot say we are at the highest level yet, but there are experiments which are very, very interesting, like body, the awareness of the body and things like that. Okay, next. So art and culture, Auroville has been given many names: the city of dawn, the city of the city the earth needs, the city of universal culture. Actually, the invitation card in 1968 announced Auroville as the city of universal culture. And Sri Aurobindo has said that between them, art, music, and literature are perfect training for the soul. So the soul is the key point for whatever growth happens, whether it's whether it's even in tourism, whether it is art, architecture, economy, everything, farming, everything points to that. So those are some of the things which happen. Next. So these are just an example of many activities that happen. We have festivals, exhibitions, conferences, youth-related issues. So, events. So these are some of the images for that. Next, yeah. So industrial zone. Actually, the gathering here today, you see, this is our economic zone. And this was meant to take care of Auroville's economy, its economic needs, as people, as the maintenance of the city, not the whole development. The development will need other kinds of funds, but to maintain and to grow, that is the role of this industrial zone. And this, I highlighted that because this really urgently needs a strong impetus and support from all kinds of partnerships. And we are very happy with what is being presented from Auroville today, because there have been real breakthroughs and conscious ideas that have been developed. And at the same time, there have been these partnerships which have been created with IIT Madras, with startups, with Atal, AI research, and similar collaborations. And we have to see how all this grows. And we want to expand now. We've been limited, we've kind of been stuck at a population level of 2,005 to 3,000, and we really need to grow, because if this experiment is to succeed, as the mother wanted, she had spoken of this critical mass. And one day somebody came to her with a problem and she said, right now you're just, 30 people, 300 people? When there will be 30,000 of you, there will be many more possibilities. So those are the possibilities and the accomplishment of the experiment that we want to move towards. Next. So some of the things which are happening in a conscious fashion, Wasteless, you will hear from Ribu from Wasteless, and they've done amazing work with the children and the youth in education. Then spirulina products, sustainable well-being products, of course, incense and all that, pottery. Then many more. There's just a very small sampling. Next. So, of course, renewable energy plays a very large part. And again, I will leave it to Martin from Auroville Consulting and Tuan to speak about that, because they have really spearheaded that with one or two other people for solar energy, and water harvesting. All those things have been earth, wind, solar, water. All these things are being worked with. Next. Yeah, I'll also go fast now. Just to quickly to wrap up. So this is the green zone, which have our farms, organic agriculture, the green lanes. Next. So this is generally work and life, many areas, basically to highlight that Auroville was intended as a space for karma yoga, the yoga of work, and to grow towards our goals through that. Yeah, and collaboration, of course. Next. I think we're coming to an end. So future focus, there are many, many things that we are now looking at, which have to now develop: lines of force, residential areas, housing, sustainable tech, the Atal startups, e-mobility, agriculture, waste management, design, education, many, the list is there. So all the things which need a city to grow. Next. So, this is very important, because we love the volunteers who come. And this is a wonderful energy that Auroville needs to harness more, and we would really open this out to all of you, to the youth, to the adults also as much, to come with that young and new energy and seeking to explore, seeking to participate. And this is what we are now gearing towards. So there is that study at auroville.org.in, and the Auroville website is there, so something that you all can explore. And we'll definitely be happy to welcome more volunteers towards the accomplishment of this experiment. I think the last slide. Yeah, so that's it. So we want to partner with national and international institutions, with embassies, with universities, with cultural centers, with industries and research, with all the Auroville and the Sri Aurobindo centers, and of course with the government of India and the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Legrand and Ms. Joyrel, for shedding lights on Auroville's philosophy and vision. Next, we have an insightful talk by Professor Gautam Ghoshal, a governing board member, who will share his perspective on Auroville. Professor Ghoshal, the stage is all yours. Please give him a big round of applause.
Good evening, everybody. Pranam to all of you. Let me go straight to the point. The mystics have always been considered as outsiders, aliens, without any material roots. Now, this was not in the Vedas, neither in the Western tradition. So even in the West, we see that from Heraclitus through Plotinus, Blake, and finally to Sri Aurobindo, we have seen that matter is secret God. And Sri Aurobindo has said in a letter that the inner must prepare before the outer follows. It's a beautiful aphorism. The inner must prepare before the outer follows. Now, Sri Aurobindo had long labored to connect, to put a hyphen between what is above and what is below. And after having achieved the topmost siddhi, he understood that this is something to do with the world. Starting from the basic unit, the individual, then the collective, then society, then the world. And this is what he has said in his major books on society, world peace, and the human cycle, the ideal of human unity. And like Bertrand Russell, he has stressed a lot on the individual. Because in chapter 4 of the Life Divine, he has said that if one man in one corner of the globe is liberated, then it affects the whole world. Now in Auroville, what happens, Sri Aurobindo always says that man must develop brotherhood by rejecting or by sublimating the ego. Now, this is where Sri Aurobindo is keeping a balance between Marx and himself. That the individual has a great role in Auroville because individual is the conscious progressive. It gives you new ideas and society must respect it. On the other hand, the individual should not do anything which will affect the collective, the community. So that in this, following these thoughts, Sri Aurobindo and the mother had been thinking of, as I have said at the very outset, that the mystics are not alienated. They may be astronauts of consciousness. They are astronauts of consciousness. But at the same time, they are rooted firmly on earth. So what should we do? Heaven we have conquered, not earth. So this life has to be transformed. And they planned an experiment in Auroville, starting with this. And the problem is the human ego. And plenty of people thought that this is a nice place. We can build garden houses here. We can, until Jayanti ma'am came and destroyed that notion that no, this is not a place for the individuals for personal business. This is a place for the divine and for an experiment in collective living. And we must come here as the charter says, as a willing servitor of the divine. So nothing is to be taken. And in this connection, two words are extremely important. I take it from the synthesis of yoga and also from the essays on the Gita. Sacrifice and surrender. Surrender is a slightly deeper word, but it's almost the same. What is sacrificed? All our baser instincts, like in Tale of Two Cities, you will remember that just before Sidney goes to the guillotine, he throws away the last bottle of brandy to the ashes. So that is a symbolic rejection. Even Dickens was full of consciousness, and that was his best novel. And he wrote to Wilkie Collins, "Heaven knows I have done my best." So this has to be, the ego has to be abolished, and in the interest of the community, and there is a place somewhere we can live in harmony. We have to find it out. And Auroville is that experiment. Anu has explained beautifully and very methodically. In fact, I'm a great fan of Anu, because she articulates so well, and she knows also a lot of things, the details. So with these words, I would request you to collaborate with us and be with us, and if possible, give service to us in the name of the Mother. Thank you in the name of the Mother.
Thank you very much, sir, for your enriching thoughts. Now we move on to a series of presentations that will showcase us the various innovative units and projects at Auroville. To begin with, I invite Dr. Sanjeev Ranganathan and Mr. Pedro, unit executives of SIRES and PEBS, to present their work.
Is it possible to control it myself? Thank you. All right. So, thank you everyone. And so I'm presenting about the education at Auroville. Of course, all activities that we do have education, but this is specifically directed towards education. And this is the Sri Aurobindo Institute of International Educational Research. You can write to us at that email address. And for me, my own journey of coming to Auroville, so people say, you went to IIT, you did PhD, why did you come to Auroville? So it is what people have been saying, for my personal growth and also to support the personal growth of others. So if we look at what is integral education, right now a lot of people are already talking about holistic education. We are also talking about integrated education. We know that the physical has to be supple, it has to be firm. You have the mind that has to be given broadness. We talk about the vital, we don't use vital, we use emotional intelligence has to be there. We talk about all these aspects. But for us, the way we look at it is that it is around the central growing soul. So I have a part of me that is unique. If you don't believe in the soul, I hope many people do, but if you don't, then think of the highest ideal you hold. What is the quality that you want to manifest at all times? Can you hold that at all times? And what will help you do that? This is what we looked at the center of our education. And all the other aspects, the physical, the mental, and the vital, are actually instruments to manifest inside out. Who I am inside to help me manifest it out. So if we look at what SIRE is, we have about 50 units that are working on various aspects of education and research, including schools, including research centers on Sanskrit and so on. And so the purpose is, how do you create an environment where a child as well as the adults of Auroville can continue to grow. And I have put here some of the few achievements We have, of course, created this environment for you to experience, to come and see. We've also been part, especially our outreach schools, have been part of experiments that have made it to the ABL system that is used in Tamil Nadu, for example, was first developed at Auroville. In fact, it was developed at Auroville and it is being used all over the state now. Similarly, what you will hear soon about Wasteless that Ribu has done was a project of Sire that has made it to the textbooks on learning about plastics and so on. So these are some of our units. So quickly looking at some of the future objectives we have. Okay, I'll just leave it there. All right. So what I would like to talk about is actually give us a little bit of a concrete example. Because it's very hard to think about this in abstraction, right? So I'm going to take a very simple example of Indian knowledge systems. So many of you are aware of the mathematics in the West, mathematics in the East, the complications in comparing it. So I'm just going to use something very simple. I'm going to use how we actually record time, a calendar. If you look at the calendar of the West, if you look at the Julian calendar, Julius Caesar, and then later the Pope Gregory also corrected it. What is the scientific basis of the calendars that are used in the West versus the Panchang that we use in the East, right? So Julius Caesar had the calendar corrected. I don't know if you are aware of it. And for that he conquered Egypt and asked the Egyptians to correct the calendar. And that year had 455 days in order to correct all the mistakes of the past. And then they gave him the idea of the leap year, that one in every 4 years should have a leap year, and which, because they didn't have fractions, I think they made a mistake, and every 3 years he was putting a leap year. So for 20 years that happened, and then Augustus Caesar came along. That's why after July, August comes, and realized that there was a mistake. And so Augustus Caesar said, well, the next month has to be named after me. July is named after Julius Caesar. August has to be named after me. And I am not a smaller Caesar than Julius Caesar. I need to have 31 days as well. They had 30 days, 31 days, 30 days, 31 days. And so there needs to be another day that has to come from somewhere. And that's why February has 28 days. It's not that the earth is cycling around the sun a little faster in February and somehow covering the distance faster, right? So if we compare that with the Panchang, which has been used for 3,000 years now, it is a lunar and solar calendar which follows both the moon and the sun. So the question is, well, clearly the mathematics in the East was far better than the mathematics in the West. And so then we can go into the next step. Okay, this is a socialization we have. We can look at it from the social perspective and say colonization. But this is where I want to say, what is the perspective from integral education? So from our perspective, when you look at something like this, you say, okay, what was the cost of this? And the cost was this is paid by every child in the world, not by every Indian. Every child in the world is learning a mix of formal and factual mathematics, which is confusing them to no end, which is why it is one of the most hated subjects. Yeah, it is hated, feared and hated subject across the world, because we have mixed fact-based mathematics with faith-based mathematics. I have to believe in an axiom, I have to believe in a theorem. I can't see a point, it's invisible. I can't see a line and I'm doing geometry. Of course, I have faith-based mathematics. Why would anyone like it? So, the first part of the perspective is that we are doing something that would make children enjoy mathematics, and this is something they hate now. So this is also transformation at some level. The second part is, when we do this, so we do with, when you have mathematics you can play with, you can question, you can have conversations, you can experiment. And all these are good, and you can make a lot of projects. So I am a techie. So I work with robotics, with programming. So we look at Indian knowledge systems and we look at programming and how do you put the two together. And so the question we ask children is, why are we making this project? Are we making this project because it's cool and like beefing up your ego? Or are you making it out of care so that others can learn, you can support others? Right? So that is one perspective of it, that what is done as an offering for the whole world, not for myself, not because it's such a cool thing to do. And the second part of it is, if we just reflect on what kind of mind would have been needed to come up with the kind of things so much time in advance, it needs a very still mind. So how do we develop that still mind? How do we develop the deepening where we can embed it? So it's different from when you sing IKS. It's not the same as what is done everywhere else. It's time. Yeah. So I'm almost done. So I just have a few pictures of the kind of things that we do, just to give you a sense of what all comes under SIA. So we have a lot of schools, we have outreach initiatives, we have research units, research projects, and we also have so all this culture and art as well as education is what we deal with at SIRE. Yeah, and that brings us to Pedro.
This one?
Next.
Okay, good afternoon. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sports and physical education we're doing in Auroville. But first we're going to do some very simple exercise, because the part of physical education and sports is practical, experimental. So I'm going to ask you to leave this framework and to come into this framework. Let's imagine that we're starting a physical education class, where we ask the students, like I do in the ashram Shri Aurobindo, to concentrate, okay? So we need to do all this together. So I ask you to kindly just close your eyes and focus your attention on your breathing. Put your both feet on the floor and put your both hands comfortably sitting on your legs. Just focus your eyes. If your eyes are open, you're open externally. If your eyes are closed, you go inside. So I want you to go more inside. And focus simply on the breathing in and out through your nose. Take a deep breath, inhale, feel the air coming in, and then slowly coming out again. And make your breathing as soft and slow as possible. Really feel this breathing in and out. And as you experiment the breathing in and out, I want you to imagine now that you're breathing through the center of your chest, the heart chakra. You're breathing through the center of your chest, and then you're exhaling again through the center of your chest. Focus there on that point. And as you exhale, you let go of all the tension. Your breathing becomes more soft, and all the tension leaves the body as you exhale. Very good. So notice how you are much more relaxed now. Very good. Okay. So slowly you come back. But notice the shift of consciousness. So the starting of a physical education class or a class can start by helping the students to center. But the object of centering will be here, not here. So there's a complete shift of consciousness. Here is completely different than here. Okay, very good. So going to the physical education, so essentially physical education, as the mother explained, to bring into the body consciousness and control, discipline and mastery, all things necessary for a higher and better life. This is a very important factor. You know, Shri Aurobindo model, you put physical body, the vital body, the mental, the psychic, the spiritual. And the physical is important because for the spiritual aspect, you need the body. So if you reflect a little bit on the physical aspect, why is so needed, why is so important the physical education in sports? we can think about India's participation in last Olympics. So personally, I think that a country with only by the number of people it had, 6 medals is short. So there's talent and capacity, but is need of a physical education literacy and of sports to pick up what these talents and this capacity that India has. And the output would be completely different. So it's very important to work on this aspect. For example, either a state organization or a national organization of physical education programs and qualification of the sports coaches. This is very simple to do, and also connects with the spiritual aspect. And also is part of a National Education Policy 2020. So physical education is an integral part of this policy. So this is very important. And also put on the slide, India 2036. What is India 2036? The Olympics. So India must prepare for the Olympics. So it's 12 years, and a special program, a strategy needs to be set up to qualify coaches, to qualify teachers, to bring this physical education literacy forward and give an example of the capacity of this country. So in another part of this slide, I give examples of benefits of physical activity. Everybody knows this: better mood, better self-esteem, more strength, more vitality, more dynamic, but also more focus, discipline, the learning of leadership, winning, losing, cooperation. So physical education and sports bring all these amazing tools that India can have at its disposal. And then you have a different country, a stronger country, a more dynamic one. This is very important, okay? What we're doing there, basically we're qualifying physical education teachers. And we're working on the physical teachers because we want the children to have more physical education literacy, to have different, how I call it, motor experiences, okay? And what we're doing there, training these teachers and people interested in sports, specialized activities like gymnastics or basketball, and also setting up a consultancy for designing physical education curriculums in university, for example, or to build up this strategy for the 2036, which is also important. And also developing a common physical education program so that everybody speaks the same language. We're also preparing a documentary with Praveen from the ashram on integral approach for physical education, and we'll be preparing the fitness and health and fitness data collection of all of our Auroville population. So this is what we're working on. But think about the first slide and think about 2036. This is my very simple message. Okay? Next. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you can leave it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ranganathan and Mr. Pedro, for the informative presentation. But following that, may we kindly request everyone to please keep their phones silent, or if you can just switch off the phones. Thank you very much for understanding. Joining us online, we have Mr. Toyin Van Meegen and Mr. Martin, Unit Executive of Auroville Consulting. They'll be sharing their valuable insights on sustainable consulting. So over to you, Mr. Meegen and Mr. Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Martin. I am one of the co-founders and current managers of a unit or department under the Auroville Foundation called Auroville Consulting. I'm originally from Austria. I came to Auroville in 2005. And one of the things that I'm really caring about is socially and ecologically inclusive development. And that's what we are attempting to do with Auroville Consulting. I assume you can see my slides? All right. So Auroville Consulting was created in 2010, and the initial vision was to create the bridge between Auroville and the outside world, and to share some of the expertise that Auroville has developed over the last 56 years in ecology and sustainable development. We work very extensively with various state government and central government departments. but we are also engaged with private sector companies. So our focus is more outward oriented. This gives you a visual representation of the team. We are currently about 35 people in terms of team strength. We are fairly diverse in terms of background, professional background, but also in terms of geographical background. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the key activities or services that we are engaging in. One of the earliest activities that we started taking up with Auroville Consulting was to work with various state government departments on formulating rooftop solar energy policies. To give you one example, we supported the Tamil Nadu Energy Development Agency in 2012 to formulate Tamil Nadu's rooftop solar policy. And that was the first policy in the country that introduced net metering for rooftop solar. A second service or activity that we are providing is what we call carbon management or decarbonization. Here we are adding businesses, districts, and cities in first creating an inventory on their greenhouse gas emissions, and then developing a pathway to reduce those emissions. To give you an example, currently we are working with the city of Bangalore on establishing a greenhouse gas inventory. We are also engaging with the private sector on ESG consulting and reporting. One example that I can give you here is we are currently working with a small textile company located in Madurai on their annual ESG report. We have been engaging quite extensively in power sector reforms, where we are advocating for equitable and sustainable power sector reforms. One example is we are currently working with the Tamil Nadu Energy Regulatory Commission on the tariff reforms of the state. One thing that we really are passionate about doing is, and where we utilize really Auroville and its unique environment, is to work on clean tech research and pilot. So this is very applied research. Here we often work with national and international partners. To give you one example, I think it was in 2017 and 18, we worked with Heriot-Watt University from Scotland on developing a smart irrigation system for smallholder farmers. We have a small team in-house that works on geospatial analytics with focus on responsible land use and see how unused lands or fallow land can be productively used for climate mitigation and adaptation. Then we have a team that convenes and designs training programs with focus on sustainability, where we use Auroville as a living laboratory and experts from Auroville as faculties. And lastly, we also have a small in-house design and communication team that primarily focuses on creating awareness about sustainability-related issues in the country. And that's where I stop. I'm open for questions and any queries later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, we have Mr. Auroville, Unit Executive of Swaram, who would be taking us with the work in the crafting unit Soundscape. So, Mr. Auroville, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm greeting you here from Swaram Music Studio, which even housed at one time Madame Jayanti for some improvisation and recording activities. I'm sitting here with Kartik, who co-created the project of Swaram together. We're running more than 22 years. Initially, it had been started as a rural social development initiative in the bioregion, in which we work in more than 40 villages around Auroville. And over the last decade, Swaram has developed in an international brand. And I just, in the reflection of preparing this presentation, which will be very brief in a few minutes, I see that we actually already involved in 10 different projects in Gujarat. With the Auroville University, we created a sound meditation garden there. We're presently working on the Tanariri Museum, which is coming up in Piemonte's birthplace. We're doing some research work in primary sound education and listening awareness with the Sanskadam Foundation. We've been shared programs and had exchanges with NID and SEPT of Ahmedabad. We work with some NGOs in Kutch, all on craft, music, hospitality. We've been involved in a project in Gir National Forest, and I think that's about it. We're just very happy. We are thriving in the contact, in the service of the growing economy in India. And I'm so happy basically from the introduction where we heard about the charter, the service orientation, the constant progress and evolutionary drive in which we are involved, and based in research towards human unity. Next, please. Yes, we had been started as a craft project, actually also initiated by SIA Research in Primary Music Pedagogy. We have about 80 people, more than 80 people working from the bioregion. And what happened in the last decade, we not only created musical instruments, some of them very unique, we're the only producers worldwide for the music of the Stones. We're working in the instrument tunings. There is 20 years of research in the classical Indian knowledge system of music. We're tuning our instruments according to the Indian Shruti system, those instruments which find application in wellness sector and in music therapy practices. Our team is basically constituting by very talented local artisans. We started also as a vocational training activity, and we are fortunate to take advantage of the volunteer internships of Auroville. We have over many years social practitioners and interns and volunteer students from all over the world who help to co-create our project. Swaram is offering different services. We're having monthly almost 500 school children visiting. We offer guided tours. We are active in different schools. We're offering public programs, weekly programs for sound immersions and relaxations. We're offering the studio for recording and media activities, and we're doing also material research. Here's a little, we're sharing a little video just for a minute, a clip to give you some impression of our work. Yes. We work with local materials, seeds, we have a strong carpentry section, doing research in timber plantations, which hopefully can be created in India. We have a big contingency of women who are very talented. We're using computer programs for the exact tuning of the instruments, which then are basically distributed in 36 countries all over the world. And we're very proud and possibly one of the only unit worldwide who works with the Indian Shruti system for applications in sound healing. Next, please. Our achievements, we've worked with over 30 projects in India and smart city projects. We built in Mumbai Airport on T2 with Mr. Rajiv Sethi, Asia Heritage Foundation, created the largest tuned chime in the world of 1,000 kilo tuned wind chimes. We collaborated with an ISKCON ashram in Goa, an eco-village, a nationally awarded project of rural tourism and environmental tourism. We have a project on an island in the Maldives, collaborating with an international family. We're bringing our instruments into the corporate sector, work closely with Hindalco, one of the biggest aluminum producers internationally. We created sound gardens in museums, in universities, and we're also bringing our sound healing modality of the sonorium in hospitality sectors, right now in one of the foremost clinical well-being centers in Kerala, worked with IRTs and IRMs. So we are very happy actually to continue to this growing impetus of India and its place in the world. In terms of our contributions, of our impact, as I said, we offer vocational training and studies, support 80 families. For yearly birthday, we have 500 people coming who are involved with the unit. We have those school programs, guided tours. We offer an international training with people coming in from all over the world, studying in the beautiful Bharat Nivas campus, have a network of international musicians, work with some experts internationally on research and innovation in the sonic realm, have a good name in the healing arts, and as mentioned, work constantly on projects in Indian institutions for bringing in the harmonizing effect of sound. And we work, just from the size, work with a yearly turnover of about 14 crores to give you an image how a rural development project can evolve. And we are contributing towards the income generation of Auroville. And I was very happy to hear, I think it was Anu also stressing the importance of developing the industrial zone of Auroville. Our future goals and objectives: I'm very passionate, also originally from Austria, working with the Mozarteum, University Salzburg. I'm passionate about research, as I believe that the role of music and a vibrational perception of the vibrational universe offers a sensory experience of the change of consciousness that we perceive, which is happening to humanity on the forefront of evolution. So we have beautiful collaborative research projects with medicine, yoga therapy, music therapy, neurology, and we have a fully elaborated plan by late P.V. Doshi from Ahmedabad. I have been quite often in Ahmedabad working with the institutions there, and we hope that we can manifest that campus, in that case, not only for India, but make a unique learning academy for musical crafts, music, and the application of sound in the future of medicine, and would like to build this campus for the South Asian countries. We have collaborations in Sri Lanka, in Myanmar, in Nepal, so we actually see the whole regional concept and that vision of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo of the larger India on its way basically to serve human evolution and human unity. Thank you so much. This was it in a brief.
Thank you, Mr. Aurelio, for sharing your insights on innovative approach towards sound. Next, we have Ms. Margareta, Unit Heads of Probiotics, who will provide insights on the initiative. Ms. Margareta, over to you.
I am Dr. Margarita. I am scientist I am one conscious entrepreneur, and I am one member of the Funds and Asset Management Committee for Auroville. My presentation is related to the role in sustainable and affordable consortia probiotics technology. 1 second, they are setting the presentation. It's only one. As we all talk about artificial intelligence, my job is with natural intelligence. Next. Our unit name is Probiotics House, as the name really say. It's the house of very good bacteria located in Auroville. Next. The Probiotics House was established as one furtherance unit in 2011 with the aim to use natural intelligence for water and soil bioremediation with proprietary consortia probiotics technology made with indigenous probiotics bacteria. When I say indigenous, it's Indian indigenous bacteria, basically from Himalayas, Rajasthan, and the Gulf of Mannar. They are Lacteobacteria is Bacillus and Porponosulfur bacteria coexisting families. Our work is not toxic, no hazardous, no corrosive. We are no GMO, but we are GR organisms in consortia probiotics like cultures. Next. What about our team? The founders are me, Margarita, and Italian Guidalma. In 1985, Dr. Teruhiga, my professor, Dr. Teruhiga from Okinawa University, came to Delhi and explained to the officers that bioremediation in Indian rivers can be done using consortia probiotics. He went frustrated and told Margarita, I'm going to teach you how to do that, and you will teach India how to do this. Now I am here 40 years later with this Probiotics House team that covers approximately 280 lakh farmers at the primary level and almost twice along the value chains. What is this Probiotics House services? First one is water and soil bioremediation and regeneration. Second, converting agricultural waste into biocompost. Other control in industrial facilities in all over India. And they say drinking water at low cost in one semi-permanent manner. This is why we are serving farmers through science. Probiotics House achievements is the presence in 56 countries distributed in 5 continents for the last 27 years. Some of the projects have been city landfills like West London, Pune, Warsaw, Los Angeles for odor reduction, forest rain and fish farming, India being now one of the leaders in the seafood sport, Guatemala, Ecuador, control diseases and ammonia. For public lakes in Los Angeles and in Missouri, pathogen reduction, city sewage like Colombia. And I had the experience to be in post-Katrina for mold control in New Orleans. In India, our achievements are related most to joint efforts with the Tata's companies. With Tata, we have been in 2.36 million hectares of ponds and tanks cleaning, 1 million hectares of floodplain lakes, 195 light kilometers of rivers and canals, almost 3 million hectares of reservoirs. We have increased the 10 to total exports and 20 in agricultural exports for India, with one annual increase of the 6.32% on India agricultural GDP for the last 4 years. We had incremented farmers' profits per year, the 1.5 lakhs to 4 lakhs. We are registered, credited, and certified by the Coastal Agricultural Authorities of India since 2018. Probiotics house with Tata not only leading to substantial economic benefits on the seafood export, such as increase the income, employment, and foreign exchange, but also ecologically, we convert the freshwater aquaculture compatible with other farming systems like paddy, that is largely environmental friendly, providing recycling and utilizing several types, I will say, rehabilitated wastewater. What are our future goals and objectives? India is growing and urbanizes, and the water bodies are getting toxic. It's estimated that around 70% of the surface water in India is unfit for consumption. Every day, almost 40 million liters of wastewater enters to the rivers and other water bodies with only just tiny fraction adequately treated by the Indian standards. One recent World Bank report suggests that such a release of pollution as streams lowers the economic growth in downstream areas, reducing the GDP growth in these regions by up to 1/3. To make it worse, in the middle-income countries like India, where the water pollution is the bigger problem, the impact increased to one loss of almost half of the GDP growth. Another study estimates that being the streams of polluted stretches in India is associated with 9% reduction in agricultural revenues and in 160% drop in the downstream agricultural yields, resulting in the loss of 6 lakh lives per year in India. India spent, and you want to treat this water, approximately 4 trillion Indian rupees. And the cost associated or related to treat Indians for the diseases is almost 610 billion per year. Most are associated with diarrhea mortality and morbidity of the children under the 5. The activated ceramics means we hadn't calcium these probiotics organisms, extremophilous organisms, into China clay, India-China clay, that we cook to 2000 degrees Celsius, and still they are live bacteria. They are not dying, they are living in the ceramics and performing the job has to be done. The photo on the top on the left is one man-made lake in Los Angeles when the children go inside to play with birds. The center photo is Mexico canals. The right photo when I was visiting Africa, Ethiopia. The left on the down is the ceramic ring that we are doing for cleaning the waterways. Can be powder, can be rings. And in the right, you can see where the drinking water because we can reduce 90% the pathogen bacteria in the water, and we can solve the water. The probiotics house, whatever fund is generated, because we are one income generated union under the Food Foundation, is all for Auroville prosperity. Our probiotics house has presence in B2B business, B2C business, and D2C. And if we had worked with government bodies in India, it should be through Auroville Foundation. I want to finalize my presentation with my own experience. I come from very poor childhood. I am from Colombia in South America. I was extremely poor, and I had to drink very bad water. I know what is gastrointestinal diseases, suffering of almost mortality. That means this conscious entrepreneur is beyond of my scientists, that is to help the children who are very affected, the women of India who had to carry water from long distance and bring the water to family who is absolutely polluted, but also like Gujarat, that is very entrepreneur and a very advanced state that I know quite well. There are also damage in your subsoil and in your underground water with the industrial waste. This ceramic ring is only 500 grams and can treat 5 cubic meters of polluted water to be drinkable. And the shelf life of this ring is permanent. That means don't die. We had a small rings that you can put to clean up to 30 liters per day in your daily drinking water. I have here my jar, and then you drink every day. Dr. Tero Higa used to say, when you drink this water, it's like you are feeling the waste of the water in your mouth. Chennai is one city that the water is almost undrinkable. Not only hard water, but very high in electroconductivity and minerals. When you put this in the tanks in the buildings when the people is living, salt the water, but make that water waves and drinkable. I hope to see you in Gujarat in one of the projects. For now, I say to you, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Margareta. Next, we have Mr. Manu, an architect from Auroville, who would share his expertise on architecture in the community. Over to you, Mr. Manu. We would request Mr. Manu to please unmute yourself.
Namaste. I'm happy to be here. I would like to talk about our Auroville architecture, and maybe I should share my presentation. 1 second. Okay, so I just like to go with the flow with all my fellow Aurovillians who've spoken a lot about architecture and also life in Auroville. And I would stress on this aspect of collaboration in this presentation. When Auroville started, it looked a bit like this, a lot of soil erosion and very few trees, and now it looks like this. We have a veritable forest with a lot of buildings coming up. The infrastructure of the city is being planned and developed thanks to the Government of India and CPWD, and we are on our way to become a universal city. And of course, we need to thank the early pioneers who came in and planted all these trees, some of them with very little respect for clothes, I beg your pardon. And then we set up the first housing estates, which look like huts in the landscape. This is a community called Aspiration, which still exists in Auroville, but in a very different setting now. And now it's sort of transformed thanks to pioneering visions by Roger Ager, who is the chief architect of Auroville. He gave us several inspiring compositions in architecture. The house below is from Auroville community. And of course, he also gave us the centerpiece, the masterpiece of Auroville architecture, which is Matri Mandir. And the whole community gathers around Matri Mandir on several occasions with fire as the focus and Matri Mandir in the background. If you're interested in understanding more of Auroville architecture in terms of its style and design aspects, I would encourage you to read this book. It's available on Amazon. .in. But I would like to pick out a certain aspect of Auroville architecture that actually Auroville can offer to the rest of India, and that's the aspect of costing. If you look at green buildings in India, we normally go to ratings agencies for references. But if you look at the way it is done, thanks to the ratings agencies checklists, we find that typically the costing is anywhere between 200 to 300% of conventional building costs. So, but in Auroville, we found a way of making green buildings with very low embodied energies between the ranges of 60 to 180%. And I would give you some case studies on this. So this one was built in 2010 at the cost of 680 rupees per square feet, and now adjusting for inflation, it's about 1,500 rupees, which is about 60% of current cost of construction in Auroville. This one came in 2017 and at a cost of 1,440 per square feet, and now it's about 2,100 rupees. It's about 84% of building cost right now. On the higher side, we have this project, which is built in 2012 for 1,348 rupees, and adjusting for inflation, it's about 2,600 in 2024. So that's about a little over current building cost. And this one came in 2015 at 2,800 rupees, and adjusting for inflation, it's about 4,500 rupees. Still, it is less than the cheapest buildings on offer if you were to follow ratings agencies. So I strongly encourage you to look at the Auroville approach to green building, which actually is quite radical in this aspect, at least the cost aspect, and thereby encouraging more and more people in India to build green at relatively lower costs. So this has been possible thanks to a lot of innovation in materials, labor, technologies and processes. And materials like earth. We have several units in Auroville that focuses on building with earth. I think 4 or 5 units I can clearly remember, who actually focus on not just very simple techniques, but also very complex techniques involving machinery. There is also bamboo, which is more and more becoming popular in India to build not just temporary structures, but permanent buildings. I'll talk about this a bit later in another slide also. And there is upcycled materials, converting our waste, urban waste, to potential building elements. And there are many units also in India. Ribu will be talking about this a bit later. And one very big stream of waste, which is construction demolition waste, which is untapped in most Indian cities. Like Delhi, for instance, produces about 8,000 tons of this waste every day, and it gets dumped in low-lying areas, wetlands, ponds, riverbeds, and it's becoming a big problem. So now the government has certain management rules for this construction waste. In 2016, April, it was introduced, and there is also a method to recycle this waste into making fresh buildings. So there are buildings in Auroville that are made out of construction waste. And one of the most interesting and aesthetic materials that we promote is plantation woods. So woods that we plant and then harvest over time, maybe 20, 30 years, and then use it to make wonderful creations like tree houses. There's a community in Auroville that focuses on this all over the world, building tree houses all over the world. Labor, we look at not just hired labor, but we also look at volunteers, interns, and researchers to build with. And in as a spin-off of this approach, we have education in a big way. So we have a lot of universities sending students to Auroville to learn. Even individual researchers and students come on their own volition, work for several months to a year. And this is one way in which we also bring a lot of innovation in working with people. And technology that we use is very simple and easy to learn, some of which can be learned in just 2 days. Professional building technologies and techniques built in just made to learn in just 2 days. That's quite something. And processes which are transparent and creative, so people who engage with us have complete understanding and also understand the processes of being creative. I will share 3 illustrations in different parts of India of how Auroville made a difference. And this is in Tiruvannamalai. It's a small town in Tamil Nadu, where Auroville helped convert a waste dump into a beautiful children's park. And currently it has an attendance of more than 1,000 children a day. And when the day it was inaugurated, there were 5,000 kids with their parents, and some of the structures, in fact, coincidentally, couldn't take the load and broke down. But now, of course, they've been fixed for the footfall. So this is another project at the point where Adayar River meets the sea in Chennai. And it's an eco park that Auroville helped create. It's a place where Chennai schools and Tamil Nadu schools come in large numbers, school children, and there's a lot of educational work happening there. The final illustration I have is that it's an ongoing project. It's a fast-track mission project of the Government of India to find a solution to the effects of climate change in India. So this project is actually looking at creating safe and sustainable climate resilient buildings for India in different parts of India for different climatic zones. So Auroville is working with the CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and the CBRI, Central Building Research Institute in Roorkee. And we are helping develop these technologies using all the materials that we spoke about earlier. And the most interesting thing that I found about this project is that the starting point of the design in these various pilot projects across the country, you'll see a list of places on the right side of the slide, is traditional vernacular architecture. So finally, we are learning to build from the architecture that our ancestors presented to us, which is an evolution of thousands of years of learning. When I studied as a student of architecture, I was taught a lot of Western architecture, and I was feeling a bit handicapped when I came first to Auroville in 1995, and I was a bit lost because I didn't know what my reason to exist is in this world as an architect. And Auroville, I owe it to Auroville to teach me that, because I volunteered that time in Matre Mandir, and I learned the essence of hard labor, carrying bags of cement on my back. And that gave me a new respect for architecture and the potential for building. And over time, we have tried to work the spirit into our buildings, work with people, work with young people, students, researchers, academicians. And we look forward to a lot of collaboration with people of Gujarat, with academic institutions in Gujarat, and also scientific potential of innovation in Gujarat. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manu. Our final presentation for today is by Mr. Ribu and Mr. Sumit, Unit Executives of Wasteless and Eco Service. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Dominic, could you please share my slides, please? While we wait for the slides to load, can you just go to the first slide, sir, please? Thank you. So every 3 seconds, we produce plastic equivalent to the weight of one school bus. Another 3 seconds gone, another school bus. We're drowning in plastic waste, overwhelmed, frozen, like a deer in headlights, while this problem only gets bigger and bigger. But who doesn't freeze? Children. I think they see possibilities and they take action. And this has been a deep inspiration to us at Wasteless, the organization that I'm part of. And our mission is to develop environmental education programs that really inspire the next generation of children in India. We have a diverse team of about 10 people. All of us are really passionate about environmental education. We've been working with SIRE's support. Many of us have grown up in Auroville, so have gone through schools and Auroville's education system. And we wanted to try find solutions. So one of our first programs, Dominic, could you put the slides on full screen, please? Thank you. And can you go to the next slide, please? So one of our first programs was called Garbology. This is one of our services. Right now, it's in a version with 13 activities. These are standalone lessons for students from class 1 to class 8. They talk about waste and recycling and our impact on the environment. If you'd like to learn more about them, you can visit our website, and they're free to download as a gift from Auroville. The next slide, please. What we saw with waste, and you see this in the picture of the dump, the previous slide, is that a lot of our waste is now plastics. That's changed very quickly in India, and plastics have become very problematic. So we wanted to tackle this with a more in-depth education program. And what you see here is children playing the no plastics game. Sanjeev sir mentioned that this was integrated into the Tamil Nadu textbooks with support from SIRE. And what we're doing here is through a fun, gamified version of learning about these issues, we inspire children to look at the plastic in their life, particularly from a health perspective, because this inspired their parents to make choices. So, does your water bottle have toxic plastic? Are you eating from a food container with toxic plastic? And this kind of opened children's eyes to plastic in their lives, and particularly single-use plastic. And the game was very effective. Next slide, please. With work, we worked with No Plastics with about 11,000 students. In 2018, we ran the program and we collect data. And we used this data in a partnership with Tamil Nadu Textbook Corporation to rewrite their textbooks about plastic pollution. What you see here is a class 9 textbook from the chapter Carbon and its Compounds in Chemistry. And basically, we're trying to inspire children to understand polymer chemistry through the plastic around them. Next slide, please. Our latest program, funded in part by the National Geographic Society and in partnership with the Tamil Nadu School Education Program, was to look at how plastic impacts the ocean. The program is called Sea Change. You can see here a student booklet in blue and some teacher resources. along with badges and a stand. Here we use different experiments to teach children all about how large pieces of plastic break into tiny pieces called microplastic. And very similar to a water cycle, we now have on the planet a microplastic cycle, which brings this material back to our bodies. Next slide, please. You can see here, we ran No Plastics with 200 schools last year, about 13,500 students across 3 districts in Tamil Nadu. What you see here is students from Villupuram District School, about 50 kilometers south of us, and they had just completed Sea Change. The end of Sea Change is in Tamil a Kadal Kundatam, or a Sea Change celebration, where students who have learned new science, the latest cutting edge science on these issues, become teachers and inspire their parents and their peers to make changes. So they do models, they make demos, they do experiments to bring change to their communities. Next slide, please. I'm deeply passionate about education and about trying to find new ways to bridge the gap between the latest science, which is often very scary and makes us freeze like adults, and children in classrooms. And this bridge has to create inspiration, has to empower students to take some action. And eventually, all of these students will be leaders in their community, they'll be voters and decision makers, and they can drive change even further. And so to date, the development that we have started in Auroville schools has reached about 3.9 million children. That's in partnerships with the government and NGOs and private textbook publishers. So we're always looking to collaborate, to share what we've found in Auroville so that other organizations can build and improve and adapt that education to suit their needs. Next slide, please. For the last year, we've been very excited about new research into fresh water. So at Wasteless, we've always envisioned that we would develop education on waste, water, and energy. Through these 3 aspects, basically, we have a huge negative impact on the planet. And if we can change habits and systems, we can have a positive impact on the planet. So freshwater was very exciting for us. We've spent the last year talking to the leading experts all around the world, and we have a very creative process of kind of analyzing trends among this huge data set to see how we can develop a learning program that connects with children about fresh water, particularly its scarcity. So we have finalized the research project last month, and we're now in talking to schools to see how we can match this to a curriculum. Our development process takes a long time, so we are expecting to have a full curriculum tested and ready to launch in 2028. And it's very exciting. Through this research, we found out that countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia are predicted to be most severely affected by water scarcity. So our passion, our wish is that we can inspire children before our taps run dry. My name is Ribu Vora. I'm the co-founder and unit executive of Wasteless. Could you show our next slide, please? I love sitting at the back of the classroom. This is during pilot testing Sea Change in Pondicherry government schools. You can see my team and I sit at the back of the classroom, and we watch teachers unpack our lesson plans. And I find it very magical because we find these very interesting ways to connect science with children by learning from students and teachers. I love sharing these lessons with the rest of the world. Next slide, please. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention. If you'd like to learn more, please visit wastelessindia.org. You see our website on the bottom. And if you're on social media, you can follow us to hear more updates. Thank you so much for your time and attention. You can end the presentation, please, Dominic.
Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation. Now we are opening the floor for questions, but since we are running behind the schedule, so we would limit the questions to 2 or 3. So if in the audience, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand and ask the question.
I'm Dinesh Avasthi, Vice Chancellor, LJ University. My one question, which is a bit, I'm intrigued. Every time you have been talking about collaboration and volunteerism. What kind of volunteerism you want? For what purpose? Do you expect volunteers to come and do whatever they want to do, or you will have certain agenda for them so that they can come and work on a particular project or some theme? So, and the collaboration which you talk about, what kind of collaboration from universities or engineering colleges or whatever, what collaboration are we talking about? Thank you.
Dineshji, to answer your question, I'll also see if Sanjeev or anybody else wants to add to what I'm saying. Basically, this volunteering, as we said, I mean, this is a sample of entities we have in Auroville. You saw probiotics, what Margarita is doing, something which is absolutely cutting edge. It's not the routine kind of work. You saw what garbology, what Ribhu is doing. I think that's phenomenal, making a difference in the whole approach that young children, Manu, Martin, and then what all that you saw here. So when we say we are looking for volunteers, there's a huge appetite among people in all these universities, colleges in the rest of India and world also to dabble with these things, understand and try and see how they can contribute to it, not just as a part of their education, but also be involved actively in some research. For example, Aurelio, he's making all these musical instruments, including the largest chime in the world at the Bombay airport. Now all this started with knife and fights in the local villages there. So how do you harness them and actually create objects which can completely transform lives in small scale, big scale, and so on. So if there are volunteers who want to come, there is a full form process for it, where not only can they choose the vertical domains, so there are about 700 entities, including green spaces, we have farms, we have green belts. So if there are children or young people who want to work in that, that's a possibility. Schools, Sanjeev has about 25 odd schools, if you include the outreach schools and the Auroville schools. We have people there's a young lady was doing her PhD in Colombia. She now teaches in the kindergarten there, and I must say they're all doing wonderful work. So there are people like that come, because this is more like a sandbox to experiment or things which sometimes the atmosphere and environment in the rest of the world is not so open to allowing all these experiments, all these interventions. So it can be for education, it can be for training, like what Pedro is speaking about. There's a full physical education program, even training of teachers, they can be a part of it. So I think the scope in terms of the spread of topics, subjects, we have about 700 enterprises, ranging from those that make chocolates and gelato ice cream to making, the gold discs for Matra Mandir, to a bunch of activities, solar energy, we are net positive. So there's garments and so many things that they can work on. But within each domain, they can also be involved in research, extension work with local communities. They can be a part of the training, and they can also in the process get certified because the NEP allows for it. Now, what is it that a volunteer, what does it entail? We want the whole thing to be sustainable. So while there are a bunch of architecture students who regularly go to Auroville, it is happening now from all across the world and definitely from different parts of India. We have a lot of volunteers who come from Germany, France, all of that. But we now want to make it available for young people from across India too. But then it would have to be sustainable, which means that for that period, while we would give a certificate of their having successfully completed it, but the cost of living there, etc., they will have to be mentally prepared to bear that, which we have worked, which would roughly, for a fairly, comfortable basic Indian student, it would be somewhere in the range of about 20 to 25,000 rupees per month, which is not definitely something which is unaffordable. So this is, I hope that answers, but if there are further questions, we can certainly take it offline. Anything else that... And Sanjeev, would you like to add something? Yes, please. So absolutely, are you ready? Yes. So these interactions are to see. See, Mother too, when we read about her dream and what she wanted, it was not about one island of excellence. It was meant to be an inspiration, a lighthouse, but we do want to have replicas elsewhere in the world too. The governing board is also open to it. So if there is a group of people in different locations, for example, are you a part of any of the Sri Aurobindo centers in Gujarat? Or so there are teams. For example, we have a team right on your left from Vallabh Vidyanagar and so on. So Bhalendu Bhai, Vibha, Vaishnavji, they're all, and they're doing phenomenal work there. So if there is a group like that, a critical mass, which is interested, because we wanted to be founded on what was the direct action, and it wasn't ossified teachings. We don't use the word teachings. It's not a religion, but it's just that it has to be integral education. So constantly it has to happen with spontaneity, with that substratum of being conscious, the medium of consciousness, and the aspiration is also consciousness. That is the beginning, middle, and end goal that we're aiming towards. So if there are like-minded people interested, you could also be a potential volunteer who comes there, lives there, immerses yourself, does an immersion for about a year, and then you can think of taking that culture, sowing it there, and adopting it.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now delighted to announce a special moment in today's event, that is the exchange of MOU between Auroville and Sardar Patel University. So I now invite Professor G. Sitaraman from Auroville Foundation and representative from Sardar Patel University, Mr. Balendra Bhai Vaishnav, who is the chairperson of Sri Aurobindo and chair at Sardar Patel University. Please welcome them with a big round of applause. For the next MOU, we have Auroville and Indus University, and the representative from Indus University are Mr. Nagesh Bhandari and Dr. Ritu Bhandari. Please, can we have them on? Mr. Nagesh Bhandari sir and Dr. Ritu Bhandari ma'am are both the presidential secretary. The next MOU exchange is between Auroville and Kamdenu University, and from the university we have MM Trivedi, who is the Director of the Extension Education. We request Mr. MM Trivedi sir to please come up on the stage. And we request Mr. Bhavik Patel sir as well. The next MOU exchange is between Auroville and MS University, and on behalf of MS University we have Associate Professor Rajesh Karya sir from SPU Hood. Okay. For MS University sir, on behalf of MS University. Now I invite Dr. Jayanti Ravi ma'am for the concluding remarks.
I think we've come to the end of the program. The concluding remarks are that let's collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. So we want to again profusely thank and express our gratitude to AMA. And he wears several hats. He's also a professor at IIM Ahmedabad. So while we're having a case study being done by IIM Ahmedabad, I think each of these, if we can document what has been done by Swaram, what probiotics has done, Auroville Consulting, each of these, we have, I think each of these is a absolute fit candidate for a case study. And of course, Garbology, Wasteless, what Ribhu has done, Manu, the architects of Auroville. It's a tiny township as of now. While we have about 3,000 people, we have nearly 50 world-class architects there. Manu is holding the flag of that group. So there's a lot that can be documented. So the process, your question, the replication also happens if these ideas get disseminated and dispersed. So once again, a big thanks to everybody, especially Sita Ramanji. A big applause to him, Dhanalakshmi, and each one of our team members from Auroville, Chandresh Bhai, Hosdeba. They've not been on the stage, but they've been doing a lot of work. And of course, to our governing board members, Dr. Nirima Oza, Gautam Da, who's always absolutely well versed in all the nuances of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, Professor Sarrajuji, again an academic administrator, and all the vice chancellors and representatives of universities who came here. Thank you so much. Thank you.